Well, thank you everyone for being here today. And thank you to the workers and union leaders that are standing up for good jobs and Ontario's future. Let's be very clear. Doug Ford and his government have been a jobs disaster. Ontario's unemployment is sitting at 8%. And still, every single day, we see new headlines about more layoffs and more plant closures, more communities that are being devastated by job losses. But whenever Ontario workers need a champion, Doug Ford disappears. And I know that the Ford government loves talking about protecting Ontario, but there's no protecting Ontario without protecting workers. These are the very jobs that keep our economy strong, they keep our communities stable, and they keep our people safe. And right now, the workers who operate our communications networks are being abandoned by their government. You're going to hear from them this morning. And the message is very clear. Doug Ford must step up now before October 31st. He needs to show us the very plan that he called for in the election. In fact, he called the election for this. Let's stop the layoffs and let's protect good jobs. Workers are tired of the Premier talking like he cares about these jobs, but then not doing anything until it's far too late. It's a busy morning today. I've got to run into the legislature for question period, but I wanted to be here to stand with these workers, with their unions, with the Ontario Federation of Labour, and with every Ontarian who believes our economy should work for people, not corporate interests. We're calling on Doug Ford to act immediately to keep these good union jobs right here in the province of Ontario, because that's how we build a province that works for everyone. I'd also, with that, I'm going to turn it over actually to Jamie West to introduce everyone who's with us here today. And I want to say again, thank you for joining us today. And it's time Doug Ford stepped up.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Good morning. My name is Jamie West. I'm the Ontario NDP Shadow Minister for Labour. It's been my role since 2018. I'm joined today by Marit Stiles, who just spoke, as well as Laura Walton, the president for the OFL, as well as Michael Phillips, president, United Steelworkers National Local 1944, and Corey Mandrick, lead organizer, United Steelworkers National Local 1944. We're going to start off by hearing from Laura Walton. Thank you.
Good morning. I'm here today proudly representing 54 affiliated unions and 1 million workers to call attention to a troubling decision that impacts not only workers, but the entire province of Ontario. The offshoring of over 100 skilled telecom jobs by Rogers and Ericsson isn't just another corporate decision. It's a direct attack on Ontario workers and the integrity of our infrastructure. These aren't just jobs being lost. These are good unionized jobs that keep Ontario's communications network running. In September alone, Ontario saw the loss of close to 36,000 jobs, with these offshore positions now adding to this growing list. What's worse is that these jobs are being offshored at the expense of our workers, as well as the security of our province and our country. Offshoring is more than just about moving jobs. It's about giving up control of the very technology that keeps us connected, over the data that's flowing across our networks, and over the safety and security of every Ontarian who relies on these systems. When jobs like these involving core operational control over wireless networks, emergency communications, and critical infrastructure are offshored to another country, it's not just the workers who lose. It's all of us in Ontario. We're talking about our privacy, we're talking about our security, and we're talking about the very foundation of our province's digital infrastructure. And it needs to be noted, these jobs are being offshored just when the workers themselves chose to unionize with the United Steelworkers. The OFL demands immediate attention from Premier Doug Ford. We can't afford to watch our jobs, our infrastructure, our security offshored in the name of cost-cutting and union busting. We are calling on the provincial government to step up to the plate, protect Ontario telecom jobs, and stand up for good, secure unionization and union jobs here at home. This trend, this offshoring trend, this union busting trend, it cannot be allowed to continue. Working people built this country's infrastructure, and we will keep it running. And we're not going to sit here silent while private profit undermines public safety and Ontario jobs. And when we have a company that is trying to circumvent the unionization process. We need to keep control of our essential industries right here in Ontario, in the hands of Ontarians and in the hands of workers who built it and maintained it. Thank you.
Thank you, Laura. I'm going to introduce Michael Phillips, President of United Steelworkers National Local 1944.
Thank you, MPP West. Earlier this year, Rogers Communications signed a service agreement with the telecom giant Ericsson, whereby Ericsson would now operate and maintain the Rogers wireless network. Rogers had been operating this network in-house, and so the technicians that had been working for Rogers on these tasks were essentially transferred over to Ericsson at this time so that they could continue performing that work. Then on September 8th, Ericsson announced that the most critically important portion of this operational work was going to be offshored to India, resulting in the layoffs of over 100 technicians by October 31st, this Friday. And most of them are in the Toronto area, the Greater Toronto area. This occurred midway through an organizing drive where these very same technicians were attempting to join the USW in order to gain more job security. These jobs in the Network Operations Center and Technical Assistance Centers of the Rogers Wireless Network involve the everyday core operational control of the Rogers Wireless Network. This includes the ability to turn wireless towers on and off during maintenance periods or outages, the ability to route digital data, the ability to intercept digital data when requested by authorities, and so on. Approximately 95% of the jobs in these departments are being offshored to India. This is not only the offshoring of our economy, it's the offshoring of our privacy and of our national security. We're simply giving these jobs away. This is a made in Canada problem, and it's a problem that can be resolved by government here. For instance, the Federal Telecommunications Act aims as one of its objectives to ensure Canadian control of the telecommunications network. And yet, what could be more opposed to this principle than having the core operational control of this network offshored to a distant country? I'll hand it off to USW staff person Corey Medrick to describe some of the specific concerns that these technicians are raising with the USW.
Thank you, Michael, and thank you to everyone standing here today. The workers I represent, the technicians at Ericsson, are the ones that are raising the alarm. They see what's coming and they know the risks better than anyone else. These are the people we rely on every single day to keep our networks running and to put them back together again when they break. Their work requires complete administrative control, authority that can restore a network in seconds or with malicious intent, disable it just as fast. This isn't theoretical. It's the network our daily lives depend on. This is 911 calls, emergency alerts, online banking, even messages between family members, all rely on the infrastructure these workers maintain. This isn't just another round of layoffs. This is a transfer of control of Canada's core telecommunication systems from our country to overseas. These jobs aren't being taken away. Ericsson and Rogers are voluntarily giving this critical infrastructure work to India. And let's be honest, this isn't about efficiency. It's about cutting costs no matter the risk. This is about more than jobs. This is about who controls the keys to our communications networks and who could use them. When you outsource that control, you outsource your safety, your privacy, and ultimately your independence. This is the moment that Canadians stand together and say, this far and no further. Because our infrastructure, our security, and our future belong in Canadian hands. Thank you.
Thank you, Corey. I want to thank everyone who was here today, Marit Stiles, Laura Walton, Corey Mandrick, and Michael Phillips, for standing up and speaking on behalf of the workers at 1944 who are trying to unionize. Marit Stiles had said in the beginning that Premier Ford has been a jobs disaster, and I want to echo that. He called an election in February to protect Ontario, but Ontario keeps losing jobs. 3,000 workers in Brampton lost their jobs at Stellantis, 1,200 GM workers in Ingersoll, 160 Diageo bottling workers in Amherstburg, 160 sawmill workers in Ear Falls, 130 Halseg furniture workers in Lindsay, and now we're looking over 100 workers from Rogers Ericsson. The difference, though, is the Rogers jobs. They aren't threatened by tariffs. It isn't outside pressures. It's basically to make a fast buck. These workers reached out to Premier Ford, have been sending him emails, and they haven't received a single response. They're going to lose their jobs on Friday. So they're here today on Monday to beg the Premier to take action, to come forward. We know that Rogers Ericssons are donors to his party. It's time for him to phone them up and let them know that he's here to protect Ontario and stand up for these workers. Thank you very much. We'll now open to questions.
So in terms of the asks, like where we're asking for action by the Premier, is it just to give the company a call? Is that what we're asking for today?
Yeah, feel free and jump in if you want to. We're asking basically for the Premier who, positions himself as Captain Canada and, has his 7th Working for Workers bill. He hasn't been able to protect any of the jobs so far that we see on a regular basis. You can't pour a bunch of cell phones out on the ground. What you have to do is actually work hard to protect these workers. It's not just about the jobs, which are well-paying jobs, skilled jobs that protect our security and our infrastructure when it comes to mobile networks. It's also about the importance of ensuring that these workers stay here and that the network stays secure and we have control of it. If you think back to last year or the year before when Rogers had an outage and the effect that it had in people across the province, when you hand that over to another country, you have the impact or potential impact of nefarious people taking control of a Canadian network and crippling us. Did you want to comment?
Yeah, I'll just comment that we're looking for government to pause this offshoring by Friday. Yeah, telecom is federal jurisdiction, but anything that the Premier can do, whether it is calling up Rogers, calling up Ericsson, calling up the federal government, lobbying our behalf, right? These are Ontario jobs. And so anything that he can do to help pause this offshoring by Friday, that's what we're asking him to do.
I also just add, it's time for Ford to fight for the workers instead of just talking about it. We've heard lots of words, we've heard catchy slogans, but we actually need to see some action. And I think that's what's missing. We hear, well, it's okay because there's going to be somewhere else you can go work. Those jobs are not coming to fruition. We're sitting at 800,000 people out of work in Ontario. And, this is not lost on the Ontario Federation of Labour at a key moment where these folks went to unionize to secure their jobs through collective bargaining, that this government is not actually stepping in and saying, yeah, we need to make that happen because this company has decided that's a prime time for us to get the heck out of here so we don't have to do that. That's called union busting. Right? And we're actually seeing of all of the jobs that have been listed, there is a high proportion of jobs that are unionized jobs. So we're going to have a Working for Workers Act. Let's make sure that it includes making it possible for people to join a union quicker, without all of the delays, without the jurisdictional fights. Because we know that good union jobs in our communities strengthen our communities. And at this current time in Ontario, we need that more than ever.
Sure, please. Thank you. It's a very good question about what can be done. And we've been speaking across many platforms about who can actually do these things. We've been speaking with MPs in the ministries and shadow ministries. We've reached out here to MPPs and the provincial government. Absolutely anyone who can have any influence over this, whether it's a pause through governmental organizations or even reaching out to Rogers and Ericsson. Again, as mentioned, these jobs aren't being taken from us. They're being willingly given. And at a time when you mentioned those extreme job losses here in Ontario and Canada need a win right now. And Rogers and Ericsson have the ability to deliver that win for Canadians. So the ask, I suppose, really lands in their lap. Thank you.
Go ahead.
through which mechanism can the federal government pause these job moves?
So we're working on two angles to that right now. We do have a couple of what are called unfair labor practice complaints before the Canadian Industrial Relations Board with regard to the relationship between our organizing drive and the offshoring. And part of our complaint involves a request for interim relief, basically an injunction on this offshoring. So that's one angle. We're also reaching out to the CRTC and the ISED for enforcement of the spirit of the Telecommunications Act, which has as one of its objectives the Canadian control of the telecom industry. And as mentioned, I mean, what could violate that principle more than having operational control go to another country? So we're working on both of those angles. That's where we're expecting or hoping for some sort of relief prior to Friday.
I think just a comment I wanted to make on an earlier question that we're asking, one of the reasons we had the press conference is we're hoping that the press will apply pressure to Doug Ford to take action on this. It can be incredibly frustrating as a worker to be told that you're going to spend the next 3 months training someone who's going to take your job in another country, knowing there's a deadline, and to reach out to the Premier who brags often about, here's my cell phone number, call me anytime, and to have, nearly 100 workers try to reach out to the Premier and not get a single reply as the deadline comes closer, to the point where they're so desperate that it's Monday, they'll lose their job on Friday. And so we're hoping that the media will press the Premier or the Cabinet Ministers to ensure that they're going to take action and do what they can on this. We know that, for example, I'm from Northern Ontario, there has been a commitment to have broadband across Northern Ontario. Those are contracts that I'm sure Rogers would like to have. And the Premier can let them know that these are important workers, and they plan to expand the workforce in order to maintain networks in Northern Ontario as well. If the Premier can spend $75 million with Ronald Reagan ads in Southern Ontario, talking about the importance of protecting jobs, he can pick up the phone and call Mark Carney. He can do whatever he can to protect 100 jobs for workers and walk that talk that he's been talking since last February.
Yeah. Infrastructure and the province's security are at risk. I'm wondering if you could provide a few more details about what specifically you mean and how you know this.
Well, I think, we work very closely with those that are with the front lines. These are the people who do this work. And so when the people who do this work raise the alarm about what the potential dangers are, I listen to the workers. And that's what we're calling on Doug Ford to do, is they have called. They want to talk to the Premier. They want to explain what their job is and what could possibly happen when we don't maintain that control here in Ontario and in Canada. And so for me, when workers raise the alarm, when workers tell me what the problem could be, I listen to the workers. I don't have all of the answers, but I'm going to ask the questions so that we can have that. And that's what we have been doing. It makes me really sad that we're sitting here saying, well, what could the government do? We have examples of where this government and the federal government were quite happy to jump in and, save employers when it looked like Air Canada or when it looked like Canada Post. It is time for both levels of government to stand up for workers, not just the corporations, for the workers, and make sure that the work stays here in Ontario.
Yes. As a lead organizer, my job was to communicate to workers who wanted to unionize, get them to sign cards so we could get them before the Labour Board, the Canada Labour Board. When these terminations were announced on September the 8th, I received dozens and dozens and dozens of calls, messages, and texts essentially saying, Corey, you don't want what I do done overseas. The job that I do does not belong outside of the borders of Canada. The control that they have over the infrastructure, being able to turn off and wilt different components, reroute traffic, the entire nervous system of what the Rogers wireless network is monitored and worked on by this crew. This is the crew that we depend on when there's an outage and to prevent outages. And again, they came to us when these terminations were announced and said, it's sad that this is happening and a job's a job, but trust me, you don't want what I do done overseas. I think that our national security and privacy depends on these jobs staying on shore. Thanks.
Any further questions?
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, everybody.